Greetings of peace and love, everybody. I want to talk about star seeds and I want to talk about human origins, but I kind of want to talk about these things from slightly a different point of view, from slightly a different perspective. Now, you have different types of humans. You can almost say you have different species of humans, if you want to call it species. I mean, humans, just like animals, come in different species. And you have different species of so-called black people. You have different species of so-called white people, if you want to call them that. You know what I'm saying? I really don't get into those colors for different reasons, of which I won't go into here. And then you have different species of what you would say like Asian people. You know what I'm saying? So you have different species of the various different so-called races. And a lot of times humans, we get very arrogant and we just say that God created everybody and, you know, all the different races, and God just created everybody. And we never really say how God did it, and we say, well, if you question God, that's just being arrogant. Only Satan wants to know why and how, and only Satan questions God. So we kind of get cocky. You know what I'm saying? We kind of get really cocky, really, you know what I'm saying? Because we really don't want to admit that we just don't know. So instead of saying we just don't know, we say, well, God created everybody. And if you start getting into any type of light research or study and science, you'll find out that this is a really big question as to how humans were created and where did humans come from. Now, those people that watch my channel, you know that I deal with like a lot of talking about like soulmates and reincarnation and stuff like that. And that's one level of it where we can talk about, well, like, where did we come from? And we can say, well, we need to look into our past lives to figure out where we came from. And a lot of times we can't get as much knowledge and information from our past lives because we're limited in knowing the scope of history of what was going down, say, for instance, 3,000 or 4,000 years ago. So say, for instance, if the knowledge was revealed to you about your past life 3,000 or 4,000 years ago, how do you really know what was going on 3,000 or 4,000 years ago to really know what type of life you were living? What if you had a past life of 15,000 years ago? How would you know what was going on 15,000 years ago so you would know how you were living? So what I want to talk about here is talk about human origins from a perspective of an extraterrestrial point of view. And I want to talk about it from a point of the Anunnaki. Now, a lot of people know that the story of, you know, there was a group of people, a group of beings, higher beings that genetically modified humans and created humans to work in mines for them in South Africa. And these beings were called the Anunnaki. And these beings came from different star constellations, but namely from a planet called Nibiru. And these beings were said to have created humans. Now, that's one level to it. That's one level to it. Now, what you first got to understand is that the Anunnaki is a title. The Anunnaki is a title. You must keep this in your mind. It means one or those, the group of beings that came from heaven or the skies to earth. Very key here to understand that, because there are various different groups and waves of so-called Anunnaki or space travelers that came to this planet. Any being that came from the heavens to the earth can be considered an Anunnaki. Now, when you read about the stories of the Anunnaki, you are reading about a specific group of beings that came from, some of them Sirius and other ones Orion. Some of them came from Sirius, others came from Orion. Key to point out here. So you do have the Anunnaki as a title, but then you have various beings, what I'm pointing out here, within the title of the Anunnaki. It's just like saying the president, but then you have different presidents of the United States of America. Like, for instance, you might have Woodrow Wilson, you know, George Washington. You have different presidents, and each of these presidents could have been of a different nationality or ethnicity, if you want to call it that. So what I'm saying here is that you talk about Anunnaki, that's just beings coming down. That's a title. You don't really know what species they are. You really don't know what class or type of beings these particular beings are from just looking at and reading a story and saying, well, it's the Anunnaki. That's a title. So what I'm pointing out here is that humans were created from various different experiments. It took a lot of different experiments to get humans here to the point where we're at right now. And a lot of people don't really want to hear this, but it's like you have to really know this type of information so that you can understand where we're going. Humans were a part of an experiment. different types of experiments, various different ones, but we all humans, period, were part of different experiments. There's not one human that was created naturally. Is what I'm basically trying to say. Like, there's not one human that's just a natural human that was just created. Every single human, the human race and species, the race of humans, and I'm going to go into the race of it to help you to clearly understand what I'm saying, was created from an experiment. Very key here. So your soul was infused into this body called the human, and that's what you have to understand, is that your soul is much more than this body. But the body, the species of humans, the shell that was created to house you, or what you would call a human, the physical reality, is a part of an experiment. Humans came from different planets. Humans have been created way before the humans came to Earth and populated Earth. Humans exist in different solar systems, in different star constellations, I should say, in what's called biospheres. And I did a video on biospheres, so you can watch that. And basically, they exist in these biospheres. And you have biospheres in Pleiades, you have biospheres in Orion, you have biospheres in Sirius. And you have humans in all of these different star constellations and much more. I mean, you have biospheres on different planets like Mars, and you have biospheres on the moon of Saturn. So you have humans all over. You have humans in the center of the Earth. So what I'm pointing out here is that some humans originated in different places. So when you start talking about star seeds, some humans, you have ancient humans that, say for instance, these humans were created in an experiment, say in the Pleiades star constellation. A group of humans were created, mostly albinos, mostly Caucasian type of beings were created in the Pleiadian human experiments. And these Pleiadians went into and came into the Earth, populated different, like these humans, I'm saying, that were created from these Pleiadian experiments were sent off and populated different parts of the universe. But these particular humans were created in what's called the Pleiadian experiments. That's one group of humans. Then you have another group of humans. This particular group of humans was created in what's called the Orion experiments, part of the Orion group. And these humans was more so your Asian stock or your Asiatic stock, which was like a mixture of what you would consider like a so-called Nubian person or so-called black person, and a mixture of a so-called Asian person. That would be a part of that stock. And then you would have your straight up like a Chinese person. All of these type of beings or whatever would come from the Orion experiments, like all of your so-called Asian beings or whatever. Anybody that has that type of blood in them would come from those particular experiments. Then you have the experiments on Sirius, and a lot of your melanated so-called Negroid, or you would call Moors, or or what you would call Nubians, were basically created from the Sirius experiments. So those are the three primary star constellations from where human experiments took place at. Now you had different experiments that took place on Mars. Some experiments took place here on the Earth. Some humans were created here, still an experiment, still engineered, but created here on Earth though. So you do have earthbound humans that were created on Earth. So that's when people talk about earthbound souls that really never had past lives in different star constellations. That's because their star heritage or their heritage only goes back to a creation of earthbound entities. And there are different classes of humans that were in these different experiments. And I could talk for hours about each class has like subclasses like within it. So say for instance, the beings that were created from the Orion experiments, you have all the way from like a reptilian type of being, a straight up reptile, fish type of being, all the way down to what's called a hybrid. You have to understand what a hybrid is, because there's hybrids. There's some humans that look, or some beings that look human, but they're really what's called hybrids. You got to understand that. And a hybrid is basically a particular class of beings that have learned how to mix their genes in with human genes, mixing alien genes with human genes perfectly in a way to where they can pass as humans, pretty much. They can pass off as humans. You have different types of hybrids. I mean, you have reptilian type hybrids, you have insectilian type hybrids, you have different types of hybrids. So it's a lot of different species out there. I'm not really going into straight up hardcore alien species. I'm trying to focus on human origins. And to basically get you to see that, I mean, as humans, like, we've been getting created on various different levels, on various different star constellations for a long time. So when you hear people talk about, like, say for instance, the human race is this old and the human race is that old, and they try to put dates and times on it, you really can't do it, because the human race, as far as the blueprint of creating a human, an experiment has been going on in this universe for a long time. A long time. And you even have another class of humans that I want to point out here, which is very key. You have a class of humans that are from what's called an abduction. And this is when people talk about some people having clones. Like, it's a doctrine in the metaphysical schools and the occult schools that we all have what's called a clone or a double. You know what I'm saying? And that goes into how, in some cases, not everybody, but some humans actually came from abduction cases where a woman was pregnant with twins. She didn't know it. And a particular abduction took place where aliens came in, gave her some high-powered so-called drugs, but these drugs aren't drugs that you take mentally. These are vibratory drugs that put you to sleep and sedate you, and they come in and abduct you, and you can't remember this. You know what I'm saying? You get really sleepy, and they abduct you, and they can take a woman's fetus from her. And if a woman's carrying twins, they can take one and leave the other. And they really focus on women that are carrying twins, actually, like when they do this or whatever. And a lot of people come from those abductions. And what the aliens do is they abduct the fetus. They let the baby be, basically, they allow the baby to be birthed in their particular star constellation or in their biosphere or wherever they're at. And then they raise the baby to a certain age to where the baby, and then they to where the baby can't remember everything, and then they'll give the baby to some type of adoption agency and they'll put the baby back into like human society. But this baby has been raised amongst ETs. So like a lot of children that have been adopted that don't really know their family, they could have been raised by ETs, and their heritage could, you know what I'm saying, could really, like, they really don't know their heritage because their mother, they really don't know who their mother was because they don't know which fetus was abducted from which woman. So essentially, this particular being wouldn't really know where they came from. But they know that, for instance, they don't know their heritage, they don't know their ancestors, so they know for sure that you have to come from somewhere. And if you don't know your ancestors and you've been adopted and they don't have any paperwork from an adoption agency telling you where you came from, then it's a chance that you could have been a case of an abducted person or whatever, a missing person. Like when you hear about missing people, a lot of times ETs abduct particular people, take them away from society, and then put them back in society as a part of an experiment. So that person's heritage will be like a mixture of an ET heritage as well as like a human heritage. So as far as, you know, I'm saying, like their species, because they may have had like an ET upbringing up to a certain age, and they might not remember this, and it might come back one day in the form of them speaking some weird language, and they're like, why am I speaking this weird language that I've never known? And scientists will go do tests on them and stuff, and they're like, we don't know like why they're speaking this language. We don't even know what this language is. And they're writing this funny language, and they're like, we don't know what this language is. Like, we don't know what this glyph is. So it's really deep when you start studying human origins. But no matter what you study or how you study, when you really get into it, if you're honest and you're not scared and you're not spooky and not caught up in religion and God and the devil and all that, you're going to find out that humans really came from ETs. There is no way to really trace back, I guess you could say, the zero-time reference of humans, and that's because humans have been being manufactured by different ET groups for a long time. And they basically have learned how to fuse the soul, the energy of the soul, into different various vessels. So you could have had an experience or a past life as an ET, and you might not really be able to remember that because you might not have a good grasp and understanding of history, like, and understand what was going on 10,000 years ago. Because what people have to understand is this, that when you start talking about history prior to 5,000 years ago, it's nothing but ET history, period, on this planet. Prior to 5,000 years ago, it was nothing but like pretty much like you would be watching a Star Trek movie or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, in comparison to how this planet was, because it was all type of beings that would just publicly walk around before the quarantine was set into place or whatever. And some beings went underground in various levels. Some beings left the planet and things like that. So it's just a lot for us to understand because we don't really know our history because it was strategically erased from our memory by ETs. And that's important because they didn't want us to know our history because we're part of an experiment. Humans are slaves, even still to this day. You are a slave. You know what I'm saying? Like, even in this Matrix or whatever, they'll teach you that. That's Matrix 101. You are a slave. You know what I'm saying? To some people think they're slaves to the government. Some people think they're slaves to religion. Some people think they're slaves to ETs. Some people think they're a slave to God. They call themselves the servant of Allah or God. Like they say Abdul Allah, that's literally calling themselves a slave of a deity or higher entity. So people literally call themselves slaves. But everybody's a slave on a different level in the Matrix. And the only way that you get free is through this, the freeing of your mind, which is through knowledge of knowing. It's not just say, okay, I'm gonna free my mind, I'm gonna let go of everything. You have to know the history of what went down so you won't be confused anymore. And that'll, like, confusion is what leads to you not being able to correctly work magic to get yourself out of certain situations. It's because you're confused, because you don't know history. Or confusion is what leads to you not really being able to tap into your past life memories and your soul, your soul's incarnation, or your soul's memories, I should say, because you don't remember. You're confused because you don't know and have a thorough knowledge of history. And then when you do get the knowledge and somebody comes teaching to you, you don't accept it. You say, that person's crazy, I don't want to listen to this, society doesn't believe it, so therefore I don't want to believe it, my friends don't believe it, so therefore I don't want to believe it. But that doesn't change the fact that whether it's true or not. Because, I mean, you have to remember, it was a reality on this planet. At one time, you would have been killed if you had to say the earth was round. Amongst a certain group and circle. You got to remember that. Because if you had to say the earth was round at one time, you would have been murdered. And you have to remember that amongst certain circles, knowledge, something may be true, and then amongst another circle, that thing may be totally false. So it's really all about perspective and where you're at. You know what I'm saying? So, like, a lot of things that I'm saying to some people may resonate, then to other people, they're like, this is too far out, I don't understand this. But when you start talking about, like, white people, black people, the races, and where they come from, all of it, folks, is ET. Every race was created by various different ETs, experiments. Don't you think that if we can clone now, and we figured out how to clone now, don't you think the extraterrestrials have been knew how to do it? Don't you think there's a chance we could be clones? You know what I'm saying? Or genetically modified species, experiments. We know how to genetically modify food. Don't you think that the ETs knew how to do it? And it's a proven fact that they did, because of the ancients taught that they did. It's on the walls in Kemet, in the pyramids. The ancients, this knowledge was outwardly taught. So it sounds crazy for me telling you this on YouTube, and you know what I'm saying, like on a YouTube video, it might be like this modern dude is talking about all this stuff or whatever, but it's nothing new up under the sun. It's nothing new up under the sun. The knowledge is there. It's just accepted in certain circles and rejected in others. So that's really, I guess you could say, the 102s of human origins. There's much more to you as an entity than even just being a human. A lot of people have forgotten this knowledge, and they don't realize this knowledge. So you start talking about star seeds and which star constellation you come from, most likely those three primary constellations is probably where you've come from, one of those constellations, whether it was, like I said, the Sirians, the Orion incarnation, and then you had the Pleiadian incarnation. Now you got different other constellations and beings that live there, but you got to remember those constellations may have been populated from those main three, though. Those are the main three: the Pleiades, the Sirius, and the Orion constellations or whatever. And from there, other races were flourished, and like other star constellations were populated from those particular constellations. So that's my brief segment on the star seeds, human origins, and just going into some of the 102s and, you know, some of the information that I didn't share in some of the other videos. And hope that cleared up some things for some people out there that have questions on some of the ET origins in relationship to humans and the races, and like where did the races come from? Because that's mainly why I did this video. A lot of people want to know, like, so like, where did this race come from? Didn't this race create that race? Every race here on this planet, it was created by a higher race of ETs. That's what you have to remember. You know what I'm saying? So don't believe anything different. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and shut this video down. I thank you guys for listening and watching. And until we meet again, I'll leave y'all in peace, love, and light.